Alright, hello and welcome back to another deck profile, and today we're taking a look at Dark Magician once again, but this time in person. Ooh, fancy. I actually want to do this again. It has changed up since the last time I showed it, but I really wanted to do this again because I was messing with Windwitch Dark Magician. Now, on paper, that deck seems like a very good idea because you're adding an indestructible Crystal Wing into the usual banishes you get out of Dark Magician. Now the only problem with that is I kept finding myself one card away from actually doing Dark Magician things, and that's because I had to cut some consistency stuff for the Windwitches. So I like it, I might try to mess with it again and then show that off, but for now we're sticking with regular Dark Magician because I'd rather actually make Dark Magician plays than just make a Crystal Wing and pass. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into this one. Starting things off, we have 3 copies of that boy himself, 3 copies of Dark Magician. Obviously he's necessary for the deck at 3. The reason most people don't run Desires and why I actually stopped running it is because even banishing one of him can be a bit trying. Usually you can play through that, but if you lose 2 of him, it's a very hard time. But yeah, he's essentially just necessary for the deck, so you have to run 3 of him. Moving on from there for our other Dark Magician, essentially we have 2 copies of Magician of Dark Illusion. Now I think a lot of people run him at 1, but I actually get a lot of use out of him. There's a lot of times where I'll have a soul in the circle but no Dark Magician. You can activate soul just to search and then special him and still get the banish off of circle. I also use him to special back Dark Magicians from grave off of things like whenever I activate illusion magic or something, you can just go ahead and special the Dark Magician back and pretty much get things for free. So I actually really like him, and I think 2 is a very good spot for him. For 3, we're running 3 copies of Apprentice Illusion Magician. Obviously the card is very good, an honesty kind of effect for Dark Magician, which helps you get over things like Masterpiece, as long as I don't have Diagram, so you just have to banish the Diagram or something. But other than that, also you just ditch a card special. Even if you ditch a Dark Magician from hand to grab another one, you can bring it back off of Soul. There's a lot of times where this is the last card you need to actually get you to the Dark Magician once you have your circle and your way to special him set up. So definitely a 3 of there. For our almost one and only normal summon, 3 copies of Magician's Rod. He grabs any Dark Magician spell or trap, so he's definitely very strong. The best, and again, best and almost only normal summon in the entire deck. He's just strong because he grabs whatever you need. So if you're using a duality or an allure or a circle gets you into something else, you can use him to grab whatever piece you're missing or the piece you need to get you started. He just searches any spell or trap that lets Dark Magician in the deck, and it's very strong. Plus, if you get him into a loop where you can keep recycling him, you can grab anything you need. And there are times where even if they out your soul, you don't care because you can just grab it again next turn with Magician's Rod and things like that. And for our other null summon, we have 1 copy of Blue Boy, for the 2 copies of Secrets and the 2 copies of Knowledge. Just the standard package there. It's just, I wasn't playing it before because I didn't have it, but now that I have it, it's definitely very strong. Obviously, deck thins 5 cards. Just seeing, one of the Secrets or the Blue Boy, actually gets 3 cards out of your deck, plus the 2 you're drawing. So it's very strong, a lot of deck thinning. Essentially the new Wonder Wand, if you will. For more consistency, we do run 3 copies of Duality. Now, obviously when I was playing the Windwitches, I cut this card because obviously it conflicts very heavily with the Windwitches. But some cards still do conflict. Like Apprentice, which is, the best way to get to Dark Magician, essentially conflicts with the Windwitches. There were times where you could null summon, insert null summon, I think, Glass Spell and search Ice Spell, whichever that good one is. You null summon the level 4, search level 3, but then you're locked out of your Rod, even if you could still, tribute her off and then special from there. Not having this card was really what was stopping me from making Dark Magician plays, because every time that I was sitting there, looking at the one Windwitch in hand, the one Windwitch that I used, it would have been this card instead. And then the next 3 cards, would get me to like that last piece I needed. So this, cutting the consistency was really hurting me from making Dark Magician plays. I know some people don't like this because of Apprentice, but again, you could just ditch this for Apprentice if you don't need it. But I definitely think this is very strong. You can almost even pick what you want if you activate this after Circle. and the same thing goes with our 2 copies of Allure. Again, people don't like it, but Magician of Dark Illusion or a Rod if you already have one Engrave, or an Apprentice if you don't need a Dark Magician, are all targets for this, including, you know, a Dark Magician. Again, banishing one isn't great, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. And I definitely like Allure in here, even though most people don't. And again, I'm trying to put as much consistency in here as possible so we can actually make Dark Magician plays, or set up to make Dark Magician plays on our opponent's turn like you do. 2 copies of Cyclone just to out some back row really quickly, and moving on to our actual Dark Magician spells and traps. We have 3 copies of Circle. Obviously it's the power of the deck, lets you banish things. You want to protect this in your soul basically and just sit there looping them, especially if you can get Dragon Knight out. Again, Theme Duality for the deck, so even more consistency there. Grabs anything that Rod can grab off of the top 3 and then lets you stack, so again you can combo that with Duality or Allure. Although I do generally like to resolve those first, to deck thin as much as I can before resolving Circle. Say you have an Allure but nothing to banish, you can activate this to check if you'll draw into something, and I'll just stack the one I'm going to banish as the top card, activate Allure, banish that, and draw 1 basically. 1 copy of Inheritance, 1 copy of Illusion Magic, and 1 copy of Dark Magic Attack. I actually just went 3-1 and grabbed this as my prize. It was the most disappointing 3-1 of my life with the Windwitch version of this deck. I had a round 1 bye, I pooped on Banish round 2, I got pooped on by Masterpiece round 3, and my opponent didn't show up for round 4, so I technically went 3-1 and commemorated it with this ultra rare Dark Magic Attack. But yeah, Feather Dust, searchable Feather Duster for Dark Magician, so you really only need 1. 1 copy of Illusion Magic just because it's a little bit outshine with Apprentice, and this counts as a 2nd copy of anything, so I'm kind of using this as a 2nd copy of Illusion Magic. Illusion, why can't I say Illusion? Illusion, not Illusion. That also stands in as anything, so I finally felt that I could cut Illusion Magic to 1 because that card is just a worse Melody of Awakening Dragon. And yeah, we finally got to cut it to 1. But moving on from there, we have 2 copies of Eye of Timaeus. Just gets you to this guy, but again, if you can get him out with a Circle and a Soul, it's kind of the lock of the deck, and it is hard to beat the deck at that point. It's actually pretty hard to get over that block, if you will. So I am running 2 of this because I do want to see it, but not 3 because I don't want to break with it. Moving on to the traps, 3 copy of Navigation. Toying with this at 2 in the Windwitch build, I was running this at 2. Just because it's a good starter, but from there you want to move on to Soul. But again, this gets you the Spell Trap Negation Engrave. It, you know, can summon Dark Magician from hand, then Apprentice from deck, grab you another Magician to set up another one of these, or a Soul. There's just so much this card can do to get you started, so I generally like to resolve one of these, and then move on to actually resolving Soul. But it also isn't susceptible to back row destruction like Eternal Soul is. So if you set 2 of these, you know, you can just use them both in the same turn. It's not even once per turn. So it's not the constant recursion, but it's still really damn strong. Plus the Spell and Trap Negation has won me a lot of games. But nonetheless, we are still running 3 copies of Eternal Soul. Searches or Dark Magic Attack can trigger, obviously, Magician of Dark Illusion in hand, like I was talking about earlier. There's a lot of times even where I'll just use the search effect of this to change the top 3 cards of my deck if I know what they are off of Circle. And then again, it makes sure Dark Magician's unaffected, which no one reads, so you'll get games just in the fact of that. But if they do know and they get rid of this card, you're essentially screwed, which is what makes the matchup with Masterpiece Turbo, or True Draco, so hard, because they can essentially just Tribute Summon and out this in the process of Tribute Summoning. So their Tribute Summons become Raigeki. But moving on from there, we run the Mini Solemn Brigade with 2 Strike and 1 Warning to round things off, just because this is a going first control deck, so seeing any of these is pretty damn strong. And that does it for the main deck, so let's go ahead and get into the extra here. For the extra deck, we have 1 Fusion, which is 1 copy of Dark Magician the Dragon Knight. Obviously, he counts as Dark Magician on Field of Grave, so if they out him, you can even special him back off of Soul. He prevents your back row from being targeted or destroyed by card effects, so they can't even Cyclone it, things like that. So again, if you get this card out with a Circle and a Soul, you're essentially set up because he's unaffected, he makes your back row unaffected, and you just have that consistent banish every single turn. Plus he's 3k, which is pretty damn big, especially when I'm used to 25 in this deck. Moving on to the rank 7s, we have one copy of Ebon, Illusion Magician. I actually don't run Ebon High Magician just because I honestly don't even go into this guy that much. But if you can get, 2 magicians out and they out your circle, or you don't have your circle banished, or you just want an extra banish on top of your circle banish, you can bring out this guy. Obviously, he specials a magician from deck, and then if a normal monster swings, you can banish 1 card your opponent controls, which is pretty damn strong, and that's basically what you're going to be using him for. It's just for extra banishes. So I don't go into him too much just because a lot of times I'll be looping the magicians back into grave and things like that, rather than overlaying with them. But when he comes up, he's very damn strong. For some generic 7s, we have Flare Metal, Dracosac, and Big Eye. I actually honestly go into Big Eye the most. Like playing against Banished, I have so much advantage, I just went ahead and went to this to take his face downs instead of swinging into them just in case. Dracosac, though, does come up in Flare Metal, obviously if you're in those low life point situations. They each have their niche that they fill, so I do like having all of them as options. And to round off the rank 7s, we have one copy of Galaxy Tomahawk. If you don't know what this card does, you detach 2 to special 5 tokens, and now with links you can just dump those tokens into some link monsters. For our 2 6s, we have some negation in Naruto and Photon Strike Balancer, Spell and Trap negation and Monster negation. They're each exactly the same stats. Obviously they take different materials because Naruto needs spellcasters, but everything in our deck is a spellcaster, so that doesn't come up. So essentially these fill the same role, just one hits spells and traps and one hits monsters. So I do like having the negation package there, and Naruto especially does come up a lot. For our 3s, just in case we run 1 copy of Breaksword, I don't think I've ever actually gone, no, I've actually gone into it once, but I had so much advantage that I didn't even need it anyway. It was just kind of a meme at that point. But just in case we do have it there, in case somehow a rod lives to a turn and we have another in hand, we have a rank 3 option for it. For our links, we're running 1 Ningirsu, 1 Decode Talker, 1 Akashic, 1 Proxy, and 2 Link Spiders. Now, Decode and, oh, whoops, that's Breaksword. Decode and Ningirsu are pretty self-explanatory. They're pretty much our ending monsters, Ningirsu obviously being a non-target send to grave, which could actually fuck us up pretty bad. Ningirsu can actually fuck this deck. And Decode Talker, which is, again, very strong in this deck because you can protect your back row from Cyclones or Masterpiece Pops, things of that nature. Anything that targets your back row, you're essentially going to use Decode Talker to save. So you'll just keep, something you don't care about in his zone, keep a Dark Magician there, tribute it off, special it back off of the soul you just protected, things like that. The Proxy and the Akashic are just in there to climb links, essentially. Again, they're just good generic Link 2s. Obviously, we have arrows pointing both ways for all our options. Akashic has their little bounce effect. All that gubbins, and 2 copies of Link Spider. Now I'm running 2 copies of him, not even for a combo. You do need both for it. But I'm actually running the Link Spiders because say you only have 1 Dark Magician in circulation and you have your Circle and Soul set up, you can just tag out your Dark Magician for a Link Spider and then go ahead and actually special him back off of the Soul for the banish whenever you need it. So there will be a lot of times where on my turn I'll just, before I end, go into a Link Spider to put a Dark Magician back in grave so I still have the banish to disrupt my opponent on their turn. Anyway, I'll just go ahead and end this one here. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.